President Mac Nichols, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. It's about time we got you on here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I want to ask you to start off. So I've been asking a couple of people this because it's a rule that I never. Well, let me ask you first. So I'm coaching this club lacrosse, and I know you remember the Gilman Lacrosse team. For people who don't know, Mac Nichols. I'm coaching this club lacrosse team this weekend, and it's overtime.
Okay.
And everyone's trying to get out of there anyway. It's like Sunday, late. And kid on my team shoots a goal in overtime. He's a pretty good shooter. Goalie makes the save, so it goes in the goalie's stick, but the goalie's stick goes way back across the plane of the goal into the net.
Like into the net?
Gotcha. Yeah. The ref says no goal.
That's got to be a goal.
I say, are you kidding me? That is a goal.
It crossed the plane.
That's what I said about 100 times.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a goal or not?
I think it's 100% a goal. I don't think I've ever actually seen that happen in a game. But I mean, the ball crossed the plane. It's got to be a goal.
Okay. Well,
have you checked the rule book?
Called two referees right after the game because I was mad. Yeah. So the referee goes, I'll bet you $100,000 that I'm right.
Oh, no way.
I was like, this guy.
That's a bold call, $100,000.
I was like, this guy must know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
So I called two referees right after, and they get out the rule book and have to look it up because they didn't even know.
Right.
And it is not a goal because the ball has to be loose beyond the plane of the goal.
I did not know that. That's pretty crazy.
We learned something about lacrosse in the club scene. But
what club team do you coach?
I was just helping out with the Crabs.
Nice.
I've been floating around with club lacrosse for a little bit here, and I just don't know if it's my my bag because it's all about win. A lot of it's about winning.
Yeah. And
you don't really get to coach that much and teach the game.
I feel like it's also about like showcasing like your own ability more so than kind of the team. So it's definitely very different.
Yeah, for the players, it's
right.
And like I'm a product. Like I played club lacrosse growing up, but it's much different now, and it's even more different, I think, in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Than it was in Philly, at least for me growing up. It's probably the same now, but there's not much teaching. It's about kind of hot dogging a little bit or showing your stuff.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know, like the tournaments are a little toxic. It's like parents are screaming at the refs are screaming at the coaches. I said I would never say anything to a referee until that last call. And I was like, dude, that is a goal.
Yeah.
But good thing I didn't bet any money on it.
That would have been bad.
I was like, all right,
would have been out $100,000.
I'm gonna go double check that one. So you're involved in lacrosse here at Gilman.
Yep.
What else? Or when did you start playing lacrosse, and what has your experience been like here playing at Gilman?
I started like ever since I could hold a stick, probably 3 or 4. I think a lot of people in Baltimore are kind of like that. It's always been a huge part of my life. Like my dad and I, we've gone to Youll University lacrosse games like forever because he played there.
Oh, nice.
And my experience at Gilman's been great. Coach Nostrand last year was a great coach to be under, and I'm excited to play under Coach Contreras. So we'll see what happens. But I've really enjoyed it.
What else do you involve yourself with at Gilman? Do you have other sports that you play? And maybe we can get into kind of your student government involvement and where that started out.
Yeah, sure. So I started playing hockey freshman year, and I started doing that kind of like on the JV team where, like, without knowing how to skate.
Without knowing how to skate, you could just come out for JV hockey.
Yeah, and that was kind of like what like the JV hockey team's kind of for, like. They had a bunch of seniors on that team, on the JV team, who had no idea how to skate. So it was so fun, but we lost like every game. Like I remember MSJ, I think the score was like 17-0, like in hockey, because the other JV teams were like really good, because it's like there aren't like A conferences or B conferences for JV. It's all just like the legit hockey program, like JV teams.
So do you have to spend a lot of the time in the beginning of that learning how to skate?
Yeah. For like the first 30 minutes of every practice, it was like skating drills.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
But guys love going out for JV hockey.
It's a blast. It's really fun. Yeah.
And how about the student government? Like when did you kind of figure out that you wanted to run for school president?
Well, freshman year, I ran to be freshman class president. And that I bombed the speech. It went horrible. I didn't even end up getting like vice president or secretary or anything. So then sophomore year, I didn't run. And then junior year, I did for vice president. I was just kind of like, why not? Um, I was always kind of interested in student government. It just seemed like, another extracurricular to kind of fill my time. Um, and then I really enjoyed kind of my time as the junior class vice president. Um, and towards the end of the year, I think I decided I wanted to run. Um, the decision was kind of twofold. I thought, one, by that point, I kind of developed like a real love for Gilman, and I thought I could be pretty good at student body president. And also, somewhat selfishly, I knew that I would come out the other end like a much better public speaker and a much better leader. So those were kind of like the two biggest reasons I decided to run.
Interesting. So your junior year, what kind of were you involved in as a junior class vice president? Maybe how did that influence your decision to run for president?
Yeah, I was mostly just kind of like fundraisers, and junior year was kind of a weird time because it was like hybrid. We were online for a lot of it, but I remember like kind of running around like trying to sell bagels to people like in the morning in class, and like that was kind of a fun experience. Not that many people want like cold bagels at like in between first and second period.
Yeah.
But I was like trying to like sell them these bagels from Panera. It was mostly food sales. Like we also ran the bingo night, which was like the first time the class was kind of back in person all together, like just for fun. So that was a really good time, and I really enjoyed it, genuinely. So even though it was kind of difficult and we didn't get to do as much as we probably did in a normal year, I still enjoyed the experience, and that definitely kind of led into me wanting to run for student body president.
When you say that towards your senior year you developed a love for Gilman, what do you think? What do you think that's about? Like, how did that love for Gilman kind of develop? I guess in that time.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there are a couple different reasons for that. One, like as I matured, I think I just kind of realized like what it is that we have here and how great it is, like all the resources and all the people kind of supporting us. And I don't want to like give too much away, but also senior retreat helped me realize that as well. So I think those were kind of the two biggest things. And also as I kind of got like more confident personally as I kind of grew up, I like started to be able to use all the different resources that Gilman kind of affords us. And I think that those were the main factors.
It's interesting though because your whole junior year you were pretty much at home. I mean, save for the last couple of months, I guess, when we came back to school. But it's interesting that you felt like you grew a lot, or at least developed an appreciation for Gilman during that such strange, distant time.
Maybe that's actually a good point. Maybe that's what helped me appreciate it so much, is kind of being away for so long and then coming back to it. I haven't thought about that, but I'm sure that kind of played a role.
What was that year like for you? You were in my junior English class, and I remember we were Zooming. I actually didn't mind. Like, I really liked our class, and I felt like it went well over Zoom. All my classes went well over Zoom, even though it was, I didn't really know the people that well, or was never in their presence before, and kind of getting to know guys through the screen was tough at first. But what was that like for you on the other end? Taking all of your classes over Zoom for 5-6 months or whatever it was.
Yeah, I mean,
longer.
There was definitely kind of some Zoom fatigue, and I think some classes kind of handled that better than others. I think our class went really well. The only thing that was difficult, if it was like Friday and it was like 80 minutes class or 70 minutes on Zoom or whatever, is a long time. But I mean, I just kind of got used to it. Like, you just fall into the routine of it like anything else. I really appreciated the classes, and it's hard to do this for English just because so much of it is conversation. But for like the sciences and math, like the classes that kind of gave us some asynchronous work, and then so maybe half the time we'd be working on our own and half the time we'd be in class. I felt that was kind of a good way to break it up. But like obviously the time on Zoom sucked, but you get used to it like anything else.
What were the maybe biggest challenges for you having pretty much a full year on Zoom? Was it the distractions, and maybe how'd you work through some of that stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the distractions definitely were there, just because it's very easy to go on your phone when you're just at your computer. I think the toughest part was just staying focused and staying engaged in class. Just because you're alone, like you have the screen obviously, but like it's a lot easier to kind of stay muted and not participate when you're home alone than it is when you're in class. Like there's something about being in a classroom and having like a more genuine conversation that kind of prompts you to participate that you just don't get on Zoom. So kind of that participation and active engagement was definitely the hardest thing to keep going. And to kind of fight that, I just had to, remind myself of, I'm still in class, like this is still school. And in order to get the most out of it, I still have to kind of do everything that I would do on a normal year.
How about kind of like personally with relationships and friends and that kind of thing? I think a lot this year about how, when maybe kids are talking a little bit in my class or they're talking to each other before class starts, I kind of let that go more than I think typically a teacher would or should, because I just remember you guys were, at home disconnected, and you missed out on like a whole year and a half of just getting to know other people your age. I think that's super important just for life and for your high school experience to, just small talk a little bit. Like, maybe I put you into a small group and you're talking about the book that we're reading, but then towards the end of the conversation, you're talking about something random. Like, that's what happens sometimes. Like sometimes you ask a random question and it spirals into something else. It doesn't happen all the time, but I like to let that go a little bit because of what I know about your experience the past couple of years with COVID, and just like friendships are, it's tough to maintain when you're away from everyone. How did you kind of deal with some of that stuff?
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely lonely sometimes. Like I remember when we came back, like from being full online, like those in-between class periods were like the greatest time just because we had missed it for so long. I've kind of saw that like with your friends, like your close friends, like you could kind of keep those relationships pretty easily just because, you're hanging out anyways and you're talking anyways. But it's with those kind of like school friends, the people that you hang out with when you're at school, in between class periods, at lunch, that, that's what you're really missing. And that's a big part of social interaction. So that was definitely kind of a big hole that was kind of hard to fill over Zoom for sure.
Yeah, in between classes, before classes, outside playing Frisbee and all that stuff. You see that around a lot on campus now, which is great.
Definitely.
So as president, coming back from a year like this, you're in charge of your class in the upper school and trying to get everyone back and engaged. What do you think is really going well for the upper school student body in general? And then what do you think is going well in the senior class right now, or at least the beginning of the year?
I think that people are really excited to be back. Like there's this kind of energy that I think is just around campus that, reminds me a couple years ago, and if not, like even better. Like people are always excited to go to games now. Like I don't know if you've been to a volleyball game yet, but they've been packed, which has been awesome.
Is that something that you had to inspire from people, or was it just naturally that they wanted to go and show out?
I think like maybe a little bit came from me, but it's mostly everybody else. Like people were just fired up and ready to go, which is awesome. And I'm super excited. I think they have the semifinals like next week, and the championship is next Friday. So that's gonna be awesome. But in terms of the senior class specifically, that's I think much harder to answer. But I think it's kind of the same thing. Like people are excited to be back. Something that I've noticed is that I think it's a little like clickier than it would be on a normal year. Just because of COVID, people are like, we're only hanging out with their friends. But I think as the year kind of goes on, that'll dissipate, and definitely after senior retreat, if I would guess, I would say that would probably go away.
So senior retreat happens every year. The whole senior class goes to this kind of remote area and stays over for a weekend. And I know you went as a junior, right? What was the experience like going as a junior? And for people who don't know, like why do juniors even go on senior retreat?
So juniors go every year on the senior retreat so they can kind of learn what it's about, so they can lead it the next year. So every senior retreat has some student leaders. And last year, I remember when I first got there, it was kind of nerve-wracking. And it was just me and Ryan Alvazados who were there on that specific retreat. So it was only 2 juniors, and normally there's like a lot more, like a whole group of juniors. So that part, yeah, I was a little nervous. But you know, after the first day, it's like you're just one with everybody else. I think people do a pretty good job of kind of being vulnerable and accepting others on senior retreat. So we didn't really skip a beat, I don't think. So it was a great experience. And I'm really glad I had that opportunity to go last year.
So do you think the senior classes change from before the retreat to after the retreat because guys get to know each other a little bit more deeply on that experience?
Yeah, I mean, I would hope so. I haven't seen like a class post senior retreat just because last year's senior retreat was like at the very end of the year.
Oh, true.
And then like everybody went on their senior encounters or whatever. But I know personally for me, it's like I definitely looked at some of that senior class, you know, differently and like appreciated them more. And even we just had like a training retreat for the people who will be leading this one. And that was like a very condensed and like much shorter experience. But even after that, I have a much greater appreciation for those guys. So I haven't seen that, but if I had to guess, I would say that's probably what will happen.
What do you think in terms of your position as the school president? What has kind of been the most expected or kind of rewarding aspect of that, and what's been the most maybe unexpected or most challenging part of that role?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think the most kind of rewarding part is like planning something and having it go well. Like the homecoming dance, like that's like student council's thing. And everybody had a great time. Obviously that's not just me, that comes from, you know, Mr. Flint, Mr. Schmick, and all the chaperones as well. But that's definitely rewarding to see. And also kind of seeing people buy into like different just like student council kind of events. Like I remember the first day of the school year, or not the first, it was the third. So the first Friday we were back. We just had like a barbecue and we brought like cornhole out. And people were there just like listening to music, eating their burgers, playing cornhole. And that was awesome to see.
Yeah.
And also like seeing some people buy into like the Spirit Point system. Like that's awesome to see as well. They're definitely more like the underclassmen are getting really into it, which is cool to see.
Yeah, something I've actually thought a little bit about, just kind of observing assemblies and observing like you talking to student body, is like the freshmen and the sophomores have like at least in the beginning of the year had never experienced what it's like to be in the upper school. They're almost like straight out of middle school. Even the juniors,
straight out of like literally like 7th grade, like the freshmen. Like it's crazy.
Yeah. So that's got to be a hard part, is like at least teaching the younger students, who you can't blame them, but like some of the traditions and some of the, you know, reasons to get excited and things to, you know, get out to and go to the volleyball game and you know, go outside and have a burger and stay a little bit later on Friday for the soccer game. Like trying to teach those traditions, I feel like is probably pretty tough.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's kind of like that every year, but like you said, it's definitely exasperated by the fact that they're literally coming from 6th to 7th grade. And we, even like this senior class, we're the only class to experience a full year of what it's like to actually be, you know, at Gilman.
True, yeah.
But that was our freshman and sophomore year. So like it's really important that we remember those traditions to kind of keep carrying them on. Because this would be the year for, if a tradition were to kind of fall off, like it would be this year. So that's kind of been like on my mind, like keeping, you know, those traditions going, because I think that's important. Yeah.
What are some of your favorite traditions or things that Gilman does as a student body, or just as a school, that you want to preserve and keep here?
Definitely just like, I think the spirit here is very, very good. Just like people get excited for games. And that's important to kind of get out and support your guys. So I 100% kind of want to make sure that goes to the other classes. And I think that the class presidents we have kind of lining up are also doing a very good job of that, and think that's important. So that's the biggest thing. I'm really excited for the pep rally coming up and the Gilman McDonough game, because every year, that's a huge event, and I'd love to see that keep going. And hopefully that becomes, like, this year it'll be a really competitive football game, and hopefully that kind of continues to be the trend, so people can get really into it. I think my class personally, just in high school, like, hasn't seen that many kind of, like, super impressive pep rallies. But I've heard of kind of some of the stuff they did in the past. Like, I remember they had, like, skydivers come in or something. They had, like, a tank come in. We saw that. So I would like to see kind of, like, these really cool events happening, like, to kind of get people excited.
So we have some skydivers
on
their way for this one.
Unfortunately, no skydivers.
They had to cut it back a little bit. Yeah. Because those Coach Emila, who I share an office with, was showing me some of the previous pep rallies here at Gilman, like a while ago when he was in high school and before, and they were
crazy,
pretty outrageous.
Yeah. No, they were awesome. So I'd like to kind of bring that back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So another thing that you have to do pretty much as class or school president is every assembly you have to get up in front of everybody and make announcements and call on people and talk. Was that a difficult hurdle for you to get over, or have you kind of always been a natural public speaker, or what has that experience been like?
Yeah. I was definitely very nervous the first couple of times, just because, like, Gilman's assembly can be kind of a tough crowd sometimes, and also, anytime you're getting up to speak in front of a lot of people, it can be nerve-wracking. But now I just kind of enjoy it, like, more often than not. Some days, if I'm a little tired or whatever, I, like, don't feel like doing it, but you kind of still have to have that energy, and I think that can be kind of the hard part. But yeah, I enjoy it. Like, they're fun more often than they're not, because everybody gets really into it. Yeah.
Who are some of the people that you work with in student council and who you lean on? I remember I was in student council in high school, and I don't think I could have. I mean, it wasn't the same as here at Gilman, where I feel like you guys do a lot more than I probably did. I was class president in high school. Like, I really didn't do much. I didn't even have to make many speeches. I don't know if I made a speech, which is interesting. But, like, I had one of my good friends, Lindsay Snyder, was the secretary, and she, like, ran the show. She did everything, and I was kind of just there. Yeah. Who are some of the people that you lean on and who you work closely with and getting all these things done here? Yeah.
Well, I try to be a very active leader, but the student council is, like, absolutely 100% a team effort. Like, Mr. Schmick, who's, like, the student council advisor, I think he's, like, the dean of student affairs. I lean on him all the time. He's a great resource. Dylan Kamenitz, who's the senior class president, super helpful. Ben Weinfeld, junior class president, he's great. He always has good ideas. Same with Jamie Howard, who's a sophomore class president. But all the guys, like, they get into it. They kind of buy into making this year as great a year as it could be. So I can't be more, like, thankful to them. They've been awesome.
Yeah. In addition to some of the, like, spirit stuff that you're working on and kind of getting everybody active and connected, what are some of the visions you have for the rest of the year in terms of making this kind of a memorable senior year as you guys kind of go off to college next year as a class?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. One thing that I kind of want to emphasize is kind of having more like community events, just things for us to do together outside of games. Like, this wasn't the student council, but the, like, last spirit day we did where we had upper school guys go down to the lower school and kind of play games with them. I think that's something that we should keep going, like, for the rest of the year. Like, I saw that was awesome. And this Friday, we haven't announced this yet, but we're doing, like, a dodgeball tournament for, like, faculty and students as, like, a fundraiser for the Donna Bentley Food Pantry.
Nice.
So, like, I think that'll be really fun, and if guys kind of get into it, and I want to do stuff like that, like, at least every season.
Yep. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
And that'll be fun, too, and get some people out there.
Exactly.
That's on the turf. This is breaking news,
Breaking news, yeah, on the Path to Follow podcast.
That's good.
Yeah. So I'm, like, just kind of doing more things together as a community, like, faculty included. I think that's kind of what I want to emphasize. Yeah.
So kind of a tougher question. but related to your role as the president.
Yeah.
Who are some leaders that you look up to,
Mm-hmm.
whether they're family members or people at the school or just
Mm-hmm.
people in general? Like, who are some leaders that you kind of want to follow or
Mm-hmm.
kind of be like?
Right.
And what do you think it takes? What characteristics do you think make a good leader?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great question. It's a great path to follow question.
Yeah. Yeah. And I teach this leadership course, so I'm getting it straight from you. We're going to have to show this in class.
Yeah. I think the first person that comes to mind is Mr. Gilman in the math department. I think a lot of people look up to him as a leader, but just the amount of care and attention that he gives to kind of every student, I think it's really, really impressive. It's almost like unparalleled from what I've seen from most other faculty members.
Mm-hmm.
Like it, obviously you haven't gone to the math lab like as an English teacher, but if anybody's spent any time in there, they know like just how much he cares about everyone who goes in and kind of making sure they come out with a better understanding. Mm-hmm. But also like just the time he takes outside of that. Like for lacrosse, he was, once a week or once every other week, we would do like that character ed session. And like, that's not easy to do for him. Like he's a busy guy. He's the chair of the math department. But he's doing that for us. And I think kind of the amount of, like he's 100% effort in like everything he does. And I really admire that.
It's a good example.
Yeah.
So yeah, Mr. Gulan is great, and he's he's always on campus. He's always around.
Yeah.
He's working with the teams.
Yeah.
I don't really know too much about the math lab. Obviously, like I'm on the other floor, but that's just kind of where you guys go to get extra help, and he's just always there, spending a lot of time with each individual student.
Yeah. And it's like, it can be packed in the math lab sometimes. It's like this tiny little classroom, and there are going to be like 10 to 15 guys in there, like all with different assignments. But he'll get around to every guy and make sure, everybody gets the help that they need. I used to go to math lab a lot as a freshman. I'm kind of in algebra 2, just like because I was adjusting to high school math.
Right.
Sophomore and junior year, I didn't really have to that much, but this year I've kind of been back in just because BC Cal's kind of a hard class with Dr. Kraft, and he's been super helpful. So yeah, that's an awesome resource.
So who are some of your other favorite teachers that you've had here at Gilman, or some teachers who made an impact on you?
Yeah.
Some classes that you've taken that you've really enjoyed. And some just other rewarding experiences that you've had as a student here.
Right.
How long have you gone to Gilman, by the way?
Since 6th grade.
6th grade?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thinking back to 6th grade, some of the more influential teachers, coaches, mentors that you've had.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. I think I'll have to come back to the middle school question, just kind of think on it a little bit. But as far as this year, the first person who comes to mind is Mr. Fitz, who he teaches AP Bio. Similar to Mr. Guline, just kind of the passion he has for his subject, and like the care and attention he gives to all of his students is amazing. Like he's always willing to meet outside of class, and he's always excited about what he teaches, and that makes a huge difference, kind of for students. Like it's an 8 a.m. class, so sometimes the class just isn't feeling it, but if he's excited, like we definitely kind of feed off that energy.
Right.
And it's a really tough topic, but him kind of giving us that passion and that excitement, I think it definitely transfers onto us and like gives us the energy we need to understand the kind of complex biology. And kind of thinking back to middle school, I think the first person who comes to mind, and I never had him directly as a teacher, but they kind of did this weird thing with math where they would combine the classes sometimes, was Mr. Culbertson. And I think the reason that he comes to mind is just because he was such like an eccentric guy. But it's kind of similar to Mr. Glenn and Mr. Fitz, and I guess this is just a recurring theme, but like the passion he has for his subject and his students is like evident in every class. So I think that's kind of the biggest thing that I admire in teachers, just like like when they really care about us. And I think you can see that it shows up in the class.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So thinking about your time at Gilman is kind of coming to an end soon, a couple months.
Yeah.
the people that are behind you, the freshmen, the sophomores, and maybe some of the middle schoolers that are watching you, what advice do you think you would give them as they become upperclassmen and they start to apply to colleges and they start to think about, leaving Gilman and appreciating Gilman and moving on to certain things? What advice would you have maybe for younger guys here?
Yeah. I think, and kind of thinking about the This Is Water speech you had us watch in our class, David Foster Wallace. Like, kind of Gilman for us is like kind of the water. Like, we can kind of be oblivious to, what it really means to be here and, how lucky we are. And just, I think it's important to take the time to appreciate that. But on a kind of a more like individual and personal level, and this is what I talked about in my senior speech, don't worry about like what other people think of you. Just kind of be yourself and figure it out and commit yourself to kind of learning who you are, and then the rest will follow.
That's good advice. Yeah. But let me ask you about that, because I think that's really hard to do, is not worry about what people think of you, because I think we're all a little worried about, not worried, but thinking about how other people perceive us and maybe judge us, and especially in high school when you're not really sure who you are yet or what you like, and if it's okay to like certain things. I think that's tough. How did you like? What was your story with that and becoming okay with being who you are and doing your thing and not really caring too much about what other people say?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And even sometimes now I would say, like, I do kind of think about what other people think, and I think the important thing is just trying to limit that. I don't really know when the turn kind of happened, because definitely as a freshman and probably also as a sophomore, I was very insecure, and I worried that was kind of the biggest thing on my mind, like what are other people thinking about this? I think luckily for me, it just kind of came naturally as I matured. But what I would say is just like, spend like a couple weeks or a couple months just like reminding yourself that that doesn't matter what other people think. Like that's shallow, and if you kind of constantly think about that, I don't think that you'll ever find kind of fulfillment, or you'll never be happy. So just kind of like reminding yourself of the importance of that, and I think after a couple weeks or a couple months, at least for me, I kind of saw like the difference in just how happy I was.
It's like freeing almost, that you can do.
Exactly.
You can pursue student government, and you can stand up there in front of people, and you're not totally anxious and concerned about everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. It's pretty. It's almost lucky that you when you find that. It's pretty.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Pretty great. So thinking about what you're gonna miss most about Gilman. And I love the example of This Is Water speech, because it's so true.
Yeah.
Like when you're in an environment for so long, it's hard to think about what it's like outside of that.
Yeah.
But what do you think you're going to miss most next year here?
That's a great question. Well, the first thing is obviously all my friends, like all the friends that I made. I think I've made lifelong friends here, and I want to kind of like continue to kind of put effort into those relationships, even when, we're not together every day. But I think also just kind of the support we have from, we know that every faculty member here cares about us, and, they want to talk to us and they want to see us every day. I think at college that's definitely true too, but you're in a much larger environment, so you don't kind of have that care that you have here. So I think I'm kind of ready to break free from that, but it's also definitely something I'm going to miss.
Yeah, two really good examples. The people around, like I was thinking about that yesterday, because I went into Sam Cheney's office, and I was getting some help with my writing, and it's like, that's pretty cool that you can just go into the guy's office and talk to him and have a conversation and get some help. And he's a poet, he's a big time writer. He's learned from some great artists and some great poets, and he has all of this knowledge that he's willing to share with you. And he's, people are happy about sharing their knowledge here, whether it's Mr. Guline or, the administrators, Cesare, you come in and you say, hey, Cesare, I want to start a podcast. And he's like, let's do it.
Yeah.
People are excited about that kind of thing, where I feel like even in college, everyone's so busy.
Right.
You have so much else going on. It's not that people aren't busy here, but it's just like more condensed atmosphere or place where that's what it's all about here.
Right. Like all the people that are here for Gilman. Whereas college, there's like a billion other different reasons, they're there. Yeah.
What has your college search and process been like? I know it's a busy time. I've got to finish up these college rec letters, and you've got some last essays to get in before November 1st. Yeah. Has it been a pretty stressful process for you, and during a year where maybe you couldn't get to some of these campuses to actually check out the schools? How did you kind of narrow your search or find the right list of schools for you?
Yeah. Well, I think there's kind of like two stages of like kind of what I'm looking for in a college. There are like the broader, like kind of qualifying aspects, like size and location, those kind of being the most important things. So I knew I wanted a college probably between like 3,000 and 10,000 students, like a middle-sized school. And I, for the most part, wanted to stay on the East Coast. So that was kind of the biggest like factor for me. But then other than that, it's kind of finding more like school-specific things. Like for me, I'm pretty sure I want to major in English, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice. That's good to hear.
Yeah. But I also want to do pre-med and probably minor in like neuroscience. So that's like a lot of different things to do. So for me, a school without like a heavy core curriculum would probably be better, just because to fulfill an English major and the pre-med requirements and a neuroscience minor, that's like a lot of different classes already. And if I had to take like all these different kind of core curriculum requirements, like if I had to take language classes and like high-level math classes, like that would be difficult to do, and also fulfill all those other things I want to do. So that narrowed down the search quite a bit too. Like if a school has super rigorous core requirements, like it kind of is like a check off. Like I'm probably not gonna end up looking at it. But that's tough because most schools do have a core curriculum. There are very few that don't. But like my number one school right now is open curriculum.
So why English and why neuroscience? When did you decide that? Because it's very hard, I think, at least for me it was, to know exactly what you want to study when you're a senior in high school.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think I've always kind of had a passion for books and for reading. So for me, like that part was kind of easy. Like I would love to be able to study what I love to do. And the second part is kind of thinking about, okay, what else am I passionate about that I'm really interested in that I can kind of take and do like after school. Like I'm pretty sure I wanted to be a doctor for a couple different reasons. Like I wanted to be able to do something where I could help people and also make money, and like there just aren't too many careers where you can do both of those. So I'm pretty sure I wanted to be a doctor. And for whatever reason, I've always been really interested in the brain. So that's just kind of how like that all came together.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Do you take any psychology? I guess what is the closest class that you could take in high school to that? Is psychology?
We do have a neurobiology class here.
Do you?
It didn't work with my schedule though, unfortunately. But yeah, Mr. Shattuck teaches.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Yeah. But a summer ago, I took like an online course in neurobiology, and I've read a couple books. So just kind of like personal kind of study, I guess.
Have you read When Breath Becomes Air?
I've not.
You have not? No. Oh my gosh. Well, we got to get you on that. I've gotten probably 4 people and my whole senior elective reading that book now. And I just picked it up 2 weeks ago in the library. It's about a neurosurgeon.
Okay.
He's in his 3rd year of residency.
Okay.
And he gets terminal lung cancer. And it's like total shock. He's in his 30s. But he was an English major. Okay. Pre-med. Exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
So all of the references are literary. He's bringing in Samuel Beckett and Dante and T.S. Eliot into his writing.
Right.
His writing's impeccable. It's amazing. and then you have the whole medical side at the same time. I mean, I have it right here.
What's it called?
It's a must read for you.
Yeah.
Because
when breath becomes air.
When breath becomes air.
Gotcha.
And, you know, when you're teaching an elective here, your curriculum is pretty set. I ordered the books, and, you know, we're rolling. We're getting through all of them. And I was like, I can't not have this book in this senior elective course on leadership and character, because it's about this guy who's really confronted with death, and his whole, like, perspective changes completely.
Yeah.
Because his life is so uncertain now, and he's battling with this illness, and he's a doctor, so he understands the entire medical side of it. But he also has this, I think similar to what you're saying, this like craving for knowledge and meaning at the same time.
Right.
So I think it's right up your alley. I think you're going to love it.
Yeah, no, that sounds awesome. Yeah.
But it's been pretty cool to read with the high school students. I wasn't sure how it was going to go because it's pretty, I mean, it's heavy.
Yeah.
And it's sad, obviously, but it's also, I think, perfect for the course, and you know, talking about meaning and talking about life and all of those things. You know, it's hard to think about, I think, when you're in high school, and you know, think about where am I going next year, and you know, what am I doing? But it puts a lot of things in perspective, I think. For someone your age, someone my age, doesn't matter. I think the book is just amazing. I'm actually not even finished it yet, and I already know it's amazing. So I would definitely recommend that one.
Awesome. I'll definitely give it a try.
Yeah. Right up your alley. It's exactly what you're describing.
That's funny. Yeah.
And you had a book recommendation for me,
yep.
for the viewers here, for everyone.
Yeah.
What did you choose?
It's called The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. I actually just finished it like a couple weeks ago.
What's the title again, sorry?
The Anthropocene Reviewed.
Okay.
So it's like a collection of essays kind of on like a ton of different random things, but they all kind of center back on like how is this world, like how has it been shaped by kind of like our presence here as humans. And he talks a lot about kind of his personal experience. But I think, you know, really good writing, kind of back to like the This Is Water speech, and good art in general, like reveals something about what it means to be human that kind of we all can relate to in some way, or that we can all kind of recognize. I think John Green does a great job of doing that in a lot of his essays in a really simplistic way, but he can also kind of convey beauty in a way that anybody can read, which is why I really loved it. I'd recommend it to anybody.
When did you pick this book up? Did someone recommend it to you, or did you just find it in the library?
So I found it. I'm not sure how I originally heard of it, actually. It's a very new book. Like, it just came out a couple months ago, I think. I did pick it up in the library. And we were talking about it. So I'm in the library club, and we were talking about it in library club. We were trying to pick a book for the book club, and that book wasn't selected. But Miss Scott, who's one of the librarians, made me check it out anyways. So that's how I ended up reading it.
And so you just read it very recently?
I just finished it last week. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So it was a great recommendation by her.
Yeah. No, for sure.
What's the library club for people who don't know?
Yeah.
I feel like I would be. If I were you, I'd be right in there with you. If I was in your age. But.
Yeah. Basically, we just have a book club, and we also Mr. Hastings just came to speak. So we kind of it's mostly Miss Scott and Miss Garden who kind of run it, but they organize that talk about his book that he's publishing for kind of the whole school. Mm-hmm. We also went down to the lower school to kind of read picture books to them, which was an awesome experience. So it was just kind of a variety of different things.
Nice.
Relating to books, I guess. Yeah.
The Hastings book is pretty awesome. I need to get him back on the podcast to talk about that, because I didn't realize he's been grinding for the past 2 years on this thing.
I just listened to your podcast with him yesterday.
We did that last year, and he was kind of in the process of getting it together and putting it out there. But his talk the other day, I never just realized how many steps there are and how much time he put into this. And man, it's pretty cool. And he's writing articles for the Spectator, which is like a huge deal.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see that and give it a read.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And he said he was like getting up at 4 a.m. to write for like 2 hours before class and everything. It was crazy.
Yeah,
crazy.
I feel like you have to do that.
Yeah, no, for sure.
No other time during the day where
you're
no distractions,
Yeah.
But it's pretty awesome. And have you read Ulysses or no?
No, but it makes me want to read it. I wish I was in the class, but it didn't work in my schedule.
I need to read it again. So maybe that's a library club.
Yeah.
Mac, thank you very much for coming on today.
Yeah,
it's a great conversation. Good luck the rest of the year, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.